So what the heck is happening with the housing market? Is it all gonna collapse? Let's talk about it. Eva Norton with Next Door Agents. Today, we're gonna talk about the crazy misinformation that is abundant all over the internet about the housing market. Oh, and don't forget to like and subscribe right down below because I make a new video every single week all about eating, breathing, living, sleeping, investing in Warrensburg, Missouri near Whiteman Air Force Base, and you're gonna wanna get notified. Also, my contact information is right down there, and I talk to people from all over the world, really. I just talked to someone who currently is stationed in Italy, and they're PCSing to Whiteman Air Force Base, and they just reached out, said, hey, can you help me find a house to buy? And I was like, yeah, sure, of course. So anyway, if you have any questions, reach out. I love talking to people. Today, boys and girls, we are going to talk about some just rampant misinformation that's all over the internet about what's going on with the housing market right now. And a really good example of this is this article that I saw online in Fortune. And listen to this title. Fed's housing market reset has officially set off the second biggest home price correction of the post-World War II era. Dun, dun, dun. I feel like there should be some serious music behind that because that's kind of a terrifying headline. And it starts off with, in June, Fed Chair Jerome Powell told reporters that the overheated U.S. housing market, which saw U.S. home prices rise over 40% in just 2 years, needed a reset. And higher mortgage rates, he said, would slowly bring balance back to the market. So, scroll down some more, and it says, we saw home prices moving up very, very strongly for the last couple of years. So that changes now. I'd say if you're a home buyer, somebody or a young person looking to buy a home, you need a bit of a reset. We need to get back to a place where supply and demand are back together. Okay. So still, you have this, really kind of scary title of Fed Housing Market Reset, second biggest home price correction of the post-World War II era. Okay, so scroll down some more. It's true that we're in a housing correction. It's also true that homeowners at large are still doing quite well. In fact, well might be an understatement. You see how you just get a little bit into the article and all of a sudden you're like, oh, hold on. There's this big scary title that basically says, oh, post-World War II era, oh my gosh, a reset, the housing market might collapse. And then you get into the meat of it and you're like, huh. As we continue moving forward, you scroll down a little more and it said, so far, the housing correction's 2.2% dip in prices between June and September has only taken a minor bite out of the pandemic housing boom's massive 41.29% run-up prices. Since March 2020, home prices are still up 38.33%. Okay, homes are still high, but, and here's really where I thought the whole point of the entire article that had the scary title was, not only have homeowners been shielded from rent shocks, many have also benefited by refinancing to 2 or 3% mortgage rates during the pandemic. Boom. So, what does that article tell you? It tells you that let's put a really big, scary, shocking title at the beginning of this article and then get into the meat and potatoes of it and be like, actually, homeowners are doing pretty good. So basically, the article title was complete misleading baloney, 100%. And then once you really read the article, it completely contradicted everything that the title just said. Interesting. Now, one thing that is true is that we no longer have pandemic interest rates. So we no longer have these interest rates of 2 or 3%. Recently, as of a month ago, they were 7%, and then now when I checked just a couple days ago, they're back in the 6s. So they have fluctuated and gone back down. However, what's been happening is basically every time the feds meet, they are increasing the federal funding rate. So basically what we see is that inflation is basically it's peaking and it's finally starting to come back down again into a more manageable range. I'll tell you though, I mean, the market is still doing exceptionally well. There are still quite a few buyers and sellers of homes. It has not stopped the buying and home selling process in the least. You know, affordable inventory is what we're really lacking. That's what we're kind of running into. Even here in Warrensburg, it's that affordable first-time home buyer type price range, which in Warrensburg is really in between $150,000 right up to $300,000. That's really the starter home range. It's a really comfortable range in Warrensburg for someone to buy their first-time home if they're, you know, a single family, if they're an airman who's coming to Whiteman. And that is one thing that we're seeing a need of on the market are these starter homes. We have quite a few larger homes in the $300,000 to $500,000 range. We have a lot of new construction in that range. But what I personally see as an agent at least in Warrensburg and Johnson County, is we need more homes in that lower price range. Now back to the interest rate range. Now, what does that mean in, you know, actual numbers? So basically 1 point, a difference between 7% and 6%. What that means in buyer's power, for example, if you look at the $250,000 range to the $280,000 range, that 1% that 1% interest rate drop, that basically is $200 per month on your mortgage that you would be paying. So it is a pretty big difference to someone who has a very set amount of what they can and are able to pay at 6% versus 7%. One actually kind of great thing we're seeing though with this interest rate being around the 6% range is you're seeing a lot more of seller concessions, meaning that you're having sellers who are willing to either pay to help get the rate down for the buyer, they're willing to give buyer concessions, they're willing to negotiate more on the price, or help with closing costs. So all of a sudden, the buyer has so many more options on what they can do to purchase a house, as opposed to, I think we all remember last year where you have, you know, a really adorable, cute house and your buyers are like, wow, I really want to buy that. And suddenly they're competing against 8 to 10 other offers. And you're having a house that is selling for $10,000, $15,000, $25,000 over asking price with waiving of all contingencies just to get the house. Thankfully, well, depending on who you talk to, thankfully we're seeing a reduction in that kind of frenzied buy, so it's becoming actually a lot more equal for the buyer and the seller, which I like because it's a lot more fair for each side versus the seller basically getting to get whatever they want and the buyer just having to deal with it. And I was looking at our local market reports here for Johnson County, Missouri, and I really saw something that just backs up what I just said. I printed both of these market reports out and I'll pop them up on the screen. But comparing October's market report for Johnson County, Missouri to November's, I saw something very interesting. I saw that the percentage of the original list price received had gone down from, in October, it was 95.1%, and it went down to 94.6%, meaning that the seller is not getting their asking price or above asking price, where, you know, last year and the year before, these percentages would be, you know, 115%, 120%. They were just outrageous, where you put a house on the market for $300,000 and you end up getting $320,000. It's now starting to trend downward again, where you're only getting 94.6% of list price, so you're not getting exactly what you asked for. And that really backs up what I said, when the buyer and the seller, the market's starting to even out to actually be equal for both of them versus just the seller. So it's heading actually in a really fair direction. Also looking at this market report for November, there are a lot more homes on the market this year compared to last year. So last year there were only 91 homes on the market. This year there's 138. So the buyer suddenly has a lot more options. So the sellers are going to have to give a little versus last year. I mean, what you got was what you got. There just were not enough homes on the market. There still aren't as many homes on the market now as there were 4 years ago. 4 years ago, there was around 150 homes on the market. But, we're getting back in that direction. One other interesting thing to note, though, is that home prices in Warrensburg are continuing to go up. So last year in October, the price of houses, the average price of a house was $222,000 basically. And this year in October, it was $254,000. In November, the average house price last year was $240,000, and this year it's around $274,000. So what does that tell you? Well, Warrensburg's a very special market. That's one thing. We have the University of Central Missouri and we have Whiteman Air Force Base. And if you watch any of my videos, you'll know that that makes our market very interesting because we have all of these students coming into the university. So their parents are like, well, I'm gonna save money on rent. I'm just gonna buy a house, pop my kid in there, have them stay there for 4 years and then sell it. And then we have the Air Force Base, where recently we just got a contract for the B-21 bomber, so we're having an influx of personnel to the base, and they all need places to live, so they're all smartly buying houses. So property value in Warrensburg has gone up steadily for the last 20 years, and it will continue to go up steadily over the next 20 years. Our houses not only retain their value if you take care of them, they grow in value exponentially compared to surrounding towns. Last thing to note, the houses are staying days on market until sale is back up to around 35 days on the market. Now this still actually is a little low, especially for winter time compared to a couple years ago. Usually the average amount of time on market was between 30 and 47 days. So right now it's 35. So that kind of tells you we're still not back up to that inventory level that we were at pre-pandemic, but we're getting there. Another telltale sign of the housing market evening out for buyers and sellers are price reductions on the prices of some houses that possibly the prices were a little overinflated. Well, I'm starting to see some very interesting things happen on Zillow for our local market. As you can see, I printed these out just so I could look at them, but they're also behind me on the screen. So we're seeing price reductions on houses, not by a little, by a big chunk. So this first house, there was a price cut of $30,000 on December 13th. So that's a big price cut. So that's really the seller saying, oh wow, maybe I'm not going to get, pandemic prices on my house. Oh gosh, there's more houses on the market. There's more options for buyers. I need to move down into a slightly more realistic range. So $300,000 for this house is a great price. It's not too high, it's not too low. It's back to being a good, fair price. Another one is this other price cut of $15,000 down to $234,000 for a 3-bedroom, 3-bath. And this is really where I would expect to see a house of this quality in Warrensburg. This is what the price should be at because this is a fair price for the seller and the buyer. And I've said this in other videos, but it still rings true. You can buy a house at a higher interest rate that you get a good deal on, or it's a really fairly priced house, and still be better off buying at a higher interest rate than you would buying a house at a way overinflated price at a low interest rate. Because guess what? You can always refinance. I would rather get a great deal and a fair deal on a house and refinance in 3 years to a lower rate than get, pay $30,000, $40,000 over asking price at a lower rate. There you go. That's my 2 cents on the matter anyway. So, in summary, do not be scared by all these crazy different headlines that you're seeing in the media right now, because honestly, our housing market is doing great. And not only is it doing great, it's finally evening out so that it's fair to both buyers and sellers. So it is still a great time to purchase a house. It is still a great time to purchase a house, specifically in Warrensburg, because our prices are not going to go down significantly. They are going to continue to rise. And don't be scared by the man. And by the man, I mean the media. Anyway, I hope you liked my video. I hope it was slightly informative for you. Don't forget to like and subscribe right down below, because I make a new video every single week all about Warrensburg, about real estate, about what we do in our cool town and Whiteman Air Force Base. So you're gonna wanna get notified. Also, my contact information is right down below. I talk to people all over the world all the time. I love talking to people. So send me an email, shoot me a text, or call me if you're feeling like talking. I like talking on the phone. I know a lot of people don't like talking on the phone, but I do. So if you have a question, reach out. Talk to you soon.